Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the East Bay Fund for Artists webinar. My name is Melody Roshan, and I'm a program manager here at EBCF, supporting our arts and culture for racial justice work, including our East Bay Fund for Artists grant making. This webinar should last about 30 minutes and will provide an overview of what to expect. A few housekeeping items. If you have questions as we move through the webinar, there is a Q&A feature, and we encourage everyone to put questions in there as we move through. And this PowerPoint and the recorded webinar will be available on our EBFA website. A bit about the origin story of East Bay Fund for Artists. It was established in 2003, and the East Bay Fund for Artists has partnered with more than 9,000 community donors and more than 200 organizations to commission new works by over 300 local artists. EBFA has leveraged almost $3.1 million in new financial support for the arts in the East Bay. Overall goals for this fund is to support for the creation of new works by local artists and for East Bay organizations specifically work with a lens towards social justice, to support for composers, playwrights, choreographers, visual, media, traditional, and interdisciplinary arts in the Bay Area, and support for diversity of artistic practices and organizations, and to provide opportunities for communities of color to experience art that represents their culture and history. Today, we're going to provide an overview of the EBFA Fund guidelines, including eligibility, process for applying, timeline, and Q&A, which we'll answer at the end of the webinar. Beginning with eligibility, one of the first questions that people ask is, do you have to be an organization to apply? No. The EBFA Fund for Artists welcomes applications from both individual artists living in the East Bay or organizations in the East Bay. East Bay meaning Alameda and Contra Costa counties. So another question we get is, in order to be eligible as an artist, do you have to have a fiscal sponsor? Yes. A fiscal sponsor is required to receive funds on your behalf, and your fiscal sponsor does not have to be in the East Bay or Greater Bay Area. They can be based in California regions, the West Coast, the East Coast, like New York and other states. So if you're applying as an organization, your organization must be based in the East Bay, specifically Alameda and Contra Costa counties. If your organization is acting as a fiscal sponsor, organizations can sponsor more than one application, but it must be for distinct projects. The other question we get is this opportunity open for international artists? No, you must be located in the East Bay. So what type of artistic disciplines are eligible? Anything from dance, literary arts, book projects, music, theater, visual arts, film. So for filmmakers, we will fund, but however, they have to have a budget that's under $50,000, or they need to show other significant project support. Our intention here is that works commissioned by EBFA should premiere within 1 year of notification of the grant. So we prefer to support small budget projects, such as works in progress or short films, or projects that are in the post-production phase. Another question we get is, can you apply to multiple rounds? So if you received an award in the 2022 round, you are not eligible to receive an award this round. A few other helpful guidelines is you can only be a lead artist on one project, and organizations can be a fiscal sponsor and an applicant as well. Lastly, we fund new work only. Now let's discuss the guidelines and application in detail. The guidelines and the application are both online. The first link will take you to the website, which provides a summary of the grant opportunity. Here you'll find guidelines for both individual artists and organizations. There are also frequently asked questions for each type of applicant, and there's a lot of great information to support you in applying. We really encourage you to review this information in great detail. This second link is going to take you directly to the application using a platform called SurveyMonkey Apply. Here, you'll see the eligibility requirements, different characteristics of the EBFA fund, and instructions on how to use the platform and troubleshoot. We encourage you to spend time exploring the application platform, especially the troubleshooting section, as we do not provide direct technical assistance. This must be received from SurveyMonkey Apply. So the number one question that people have is, should I apply as an individual artist or should I apply as an organization? And what are the differences? Here's a few questions to help make that decision. Most importantly, who is actually leading the work? Who is commissioning the project? Whose work and base will be expanded through this process? And who will lead the work, facilitating, supporting the project, and the process for developing the work? Next here, we have the application checklist. These two look similar for both artists and organizations, but the main difference between the two is that individual artists will need to have a letter of commitment from a venue. They'll need a fiscal sponsor agreement, an organization budget from the fiscal sponsor, and as well as a project budget from the artists. In terms of both of them being similar, they'll have the essential questions on demographics, narrative questions, project budget, project timeline, artist statement, work samples. Again, all of this is on the SurveyMonkey Apply platform in terms of requirements and eligibility. Panel. So what will they be looking for? They want to see the creation of new work and how it's supporting individual artists. In the narrative description, panelists are looking for clear visions with strong artists' practice. They also want to see that the EBFA funds 100% have to go to the lead artists, and that the EBFA funds will support up to 75% of the total project cost. They want to see that any funds that are raised outside of EBFA can be used for other aspects of the production, like performers or production costs, materials, supplies, etc. They'll see if the lead artist can hold multiple roles, such as composer, director, artist, etc. What audiences do you plan to engage? What audience does this piece speak to? Who are they? What are their characteristics? The strong themes of social justice in the work. Broadly defined, does it speak to a current social justice issue or speak to issues happening in impacted communities? What is the work saying about a social justice related theme or history? Looking to support artists and organizations that are underrepresented in the arts ecosystem, by also keeping the mission with the fund to support arts organizations and artists part of the dynamic ecosystem, but have not received amount of support that they need to continue to create new work. When it comes to the artist's statement, it's very critical to answer the following questions. How does this work particularly fit with your practice? What inspired you to do and create this new work? And which audiences do you plan to engage? Moving on to budget, we want you to be realistic, include all costs, and let us know what this work requires. Budgets can look different. There are different approaches. However, these are an example of the elements we need to see. Both as organizations and individuals, you will need to provide a budget. And in the budget, this is where you're going to identify where you get your funds from to support this project. A question that we get is, must all other funding be secured to be funded through EBFA? No, however, 100% of the EBFA funds, again, must go to the lead artist. Moving on to how will the panel score applications? They want to see clear articulation of the project and how it aligns with the artist's artistic practice and creative development, demonstrated ability to complete the project, plan to reach and engage your audience, and strength of social justice themes and issues. On top of that, panelists will also look at the artist's history. what has been the track record for organizations and artists around this project? While this is about creating new work, they will look at the work that the artist has done before to see, is this a break from that? How will funds help them to do that? And why and how will the funds support this new directive? For organizations that are applying, panelists will consider the alignment between organization and artists. Why is the organization choosing this artist and this work to be commissioned? Is there a clear vision behind this new commission? Does this new work fit with the organization's history, or is it a departure or a new direction? Is this a meaningful addition or commission in terms of the organization development and the type of work that the organization does in collaboration and commissioning? Another thing is that the organization's ability to manage to get the project and offer the artists the support they need and the feasibility to produce the work. Moving on to work samples. We ask for 1 to 2 per lead artist. This can be an audio or a video. Only thing we ask is that it's no more than 3 minutes long. If you are a playwright, you can upload a script, but no more than 10 pages, and no need to submit an entire script, just a sample. Photos, and all of this will be uploaded using the platform SurveyMonkey Apply. Super user-friendly. Timeline. So the deadline to apply is September 15th, 5 p.m. Pacific time. The panel will review applications in October, and the target date to notify applicants of the decision is early November. And our target to process grant awards is mid-November. And your East Bay premiere must be within 1 year of receiving your award. And here is a review of our fiscal sponsors. Again, this is required for all individual artists and organizations that do not have a 501c3. You do not need to be, the fiscal sponsor does not need to be located in the East Bay. And over here, you have some examples of fiscal sponsors with a long track record of supporting artists in the East Bay. Again, all of this is going to be available on our website, this PowerPoint and webinar, so it'll be available hopefully by the end of day today. So now I'm going to go ahead and check out the questions in the Q&A, and my colleagues Deborah Giles and Anika Howard and I will go ahead and go through and answer them together. Okay, the first question is, do lead artists include costs for materials, or should materials costs be budgeted on a separate line independent of EBFA funds? So materials would be a separate cost. That should be a separate line independent from the lead artist. So the EBFA funds goes directly to support the lead artist. The next question is, oh, this one was answered already. I think those are the only questions so far. Does anybody else have questions? Okay. Does EBFA grant support emerging artists at a first work? Yes. So as long as this is new work and it's never been done before, and you have all the requirements and you're eligible based on the guidelines that we posted, if you're an emerging artist or not, that's totally fine, as long as it's new work. Next question. Can a project commissioned by a non-BIPOC-led organization be eligible? The lead artist is Ukrainian, but not BIPOC. This fund is for BIPOC-led organizations and lead artists only. Next question. Do you have to be Black, Indigenous, or a person of color or a BIPOC-led organization led by people of color to apply? I'm a white artist and the app tells me I'm not eligible to apply. This fund itself is created for Black, Indigenous, or other people of color or BIPOC-led group and organizations. So if you are not part of those guideline like requirements, then unfortunately not eligible to apply. If an artist is curating an exhibition on behalf of an organization, is that within EBFA guidelines? I'm gonna need to ask Deborah or Anika's help for that one, for Zoya's question. If an artist is curating an exhibition on behalf of an organization, is that within EBFA guidelines?
Hi, Melody. Thank you. This is Anika. Glad to see everybody with us. So as described in Melody's presentation, if an artist is the lead artist and is also playing another role as a curator, that's fine. They can provide that support to the organization for the project. Just remember that all the funds from the East Bay Fund for Artists has to go to lead artists, and there could be more than one lead artist, as well as a lead artist playing more than one role.
Thank you, Anika. The next question is, if the target audience is Black women only, is that acceptable? Yes. Hello, I am applying for funds for a Native American comedy show in Oakland. I perform and produce the show. Can I include a producer fee and performer fee in my budget? I believe it would be considered the lead artist, but there will be other performance on the lineup of the lineup. I want to say yes. Is that correct, Anika?
Yes, that's correct.
That's correct. Yes, Jackie. Thanks, y'all, for your patience with me. It's my first time doing a webinar. What sort of work samples can visual artists provide? Just 2 slides of individual works or a collection of works? You can so if you're a visual artist, you can upload the photos of your work directly to SMA, SurveyMonkey Apply. I think you have a limit. I think there's only 2 that you can, so only 2 you can provide, and I think SurveyMonkey will cap it too. Zoya, thanks. You're welcome. Can a non-BIPOC-led organization commission an artist of color? Anika and Deborah, can you answer this one? Because as long as who's getting the funding?
Trying to unmute myself. Oh, there I am. So can a non-BIPOC-led organization commission an artist of color? Well, if you're applying for the grant as an organization and you're not BIPOC, then the answer is no. Because if the artist is applying as an individual artist, and they are BIPOC, then that would be different. But we would be giving the grant to the organization, and the funds would go to the lead artist, but the grant on record would be the organization, and they're not BIPOC-led. So BIPOC-led organizations need to apply. If that makes sense.
Thank you, Deborah. Next question from Carl. If applying for music, can a lead artist be performing ensemble or band, or does it have to be individual? You can perform with your band. Hello, Next question. Hello, when submitting the project budget, even though there will be several lines, East Bay Fund only covers the portion of the budget for lead artists and no other portion of the project expenses, rental fees, costuming, etc. I want to be sure I'm understanding this correctly. Yes, correct. The EBFA fund will only go towards the lead artist. 100% of the fund goes towards the lead artist. And again, the fund will only it should be only up to 75% of your total project budget should be the EBFA fund, and 100% of that is going to the lead artist. In terms of budget, can you make some income off of event ticket sales? I'm not sure I understand that question. Anika or Deborah?
I'll try, but I want to back up from Deborah here. So essentially they're talking about income and expenses. So if you believe that your project might earn some form of income from ticket sales, I don't think that that disqualifies you from applying for support to cover the cost of the lead artist. The organization doesn't want to see what your full budget is and understand the full cost. But I do not believe that making some income disqualifies you. Deborah, is that right?
That is correct. Absolutely not. So when you look at your budget and part of your budget is coming from ticket sales, then fine. If you end up with more money from the sales than you anticipated, then yeah, that's not an issue. Not an issue.
Thank you both. Another question is, but it sounds like a non-BIPOC led organization can be a fiscal sponsor for an artist of color who is applying as an artist. Is this correct? Yes. Carl, just to clarify, can I list a group like East Bay Ensemble as a lead artist, or do I have to list each ensemble member individually? You would need to list each member individually. You're welcome, Carl. Other question is, since the money is going project, what kinds of things are they required to send the funds? Since the money, I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand this question. Since the money is going Anika, Deborah, do you understand this question? Sorry, I might be reading it wrong.
No, I'm not quite understanding what they're asking as well. In other words, if you have a team that you're applying for the grant and we know the funds are going to the lead artist, are you asking how do you pay the other people who are on the project? I'm not understanding.
Oh, there's another question. Since the money is going to an individual, what kinds of things are they required to spend the funds on?
Okay, so you would have to be working with a fiscal sponsor in order to pay, unless you're an organization, you would have to be working with a fiscal sponsor in order to pay the artist. And those type of things they should be set up to do. I think it's a percentage that they take off the grant, and then the remainder goes to the artist. Normally it's about a 10%, usually it's about 10% fee or less, and then the remainder will go to the artist. But you would have to have a fiscal sponsor and you would have to have an agreement in place before the grant was awarded.
Thank you, Deborah. Does anybody else have any more questions? We'll give it a couple minutes. Okay. I don't think anybody else has any more questions.
I see one more, Melody.
Where?
It's in the chat.
It's in the chat.
Please, oh, sorry. Thank you for that. Please clarify new work. Can this include a new iteration or a work in progress?
If it hasn't premiered
Yes.
and it will premiere within 1 year of receiving the grant, then it's new work. So it can be in progress, but if you've already had a showing, it's not new work.
Thank you, Deborah. Any other questions?
Anika, you might want to address the question of a new iteration of the work. So I'm thinking if it's a play or production and you hire new artists and you
Mhm.
do a new showing, it's still not considered new work.
Right.
So I just want to be clear when we're looking at an iteration, and just maybe you can give us a little more detail as to what you mean by that.
Yeah. And I see that is a question that comes up, and the answer remains the same, where this is to commission new work. So if the work has been presented publicly in any form in the past, it wouldn't be considered new work. If you were creating a work in progress for a new play, a new musical that had never been seen and never been workshopped publicly, where people were invited to come to an open public event and see this work in progress, then that would be considered not a new work if that took place. But if you haven't presented it in public, it has not been experienced in the public realm, and you've been working on it on your own, you've been writing and rewriting, or privately, then you could apply for it as a new work in progress.
So someone asked if they perform bits and pieces of the work, as in workshopping, not a full production of this work, is that considered new?
I would say no. That would not be considered a new work, in my opinion.
Okay, thanks, Anika. Does completion of a previous funded work sample considered new work? No. And okay, other question. For an emerging new artist, what do you recommend for work samples? Does it matter if they're unproduced?
It doesn't matter, especially if it's a new artist and who's emerging. We would still consider you for support. So you would just need to submit. I know it's kind of hard to get a sample of your work, but you would need to submit something in terms of a work sample. But it won't count against you that if you haven't performed or you haven't had a production that was produced previously.
Thank you, Deborah.
I would add one more thing to that. In terms of being a new artist, it would be really necessary to provide examples of your artistic style, your approach, something that provides an example of your expertise, your gift, your talent. Whatever it is that you are creating as an artist, the panel will want to see that you have the capacity to produce what you're proposing and seeking funding for. So they'll want to see samples of your work as an artist, even if you haven't created this new piece yet.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. We're at 11:31 now. One more question just arrived. To clarify, lead artists can be more than one artist. Also, do the lead artists need to be in and from East Bay? For the comedy show, I bring in artists from other cities, states. Curious if the panel will support funding from out-of-state artists. You can have multiple lead artists, but it has to be rooted in the East Bay. They have to be rooted in the East Bay. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay. Just to be clear, old work has already been a stage and audience. Yes, that is part of it. Yes. Or produced and funded and commissioned. Any other questions? Okay, well, this concludes the webinar. We really want to support new work coming from the East Bay. If you have any more specific questions, feel free to contact us at ebfa@eastbaycf.org. Thanks so much, everyone, and we look forward to receiving your applications. Bye.